Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays City Tips, where I take a look at your cities and give you tips on how to improve them. It's an opportunity for the community to come together and share ideas and not just look at my builds. And it's a chance for you to get a City Planner City Score. What this isn't is an opportunity for negativity or roasting. I'm here to help, not poke fun at you or make anyone uncomfortable. This should be a relaxing experience. We get constructive feedback from me that you could use to improve your city. So today we are looking at a build from Alfadragon. This is North County White Emerald City on the map Frozenshire, and they have identified themselves as an expert City Skylines player. So we're going to take a look today and find out if they are right. So they provided a brief story, and I'm going to read the story to you in just a moment, but what I want to do first is go over how I review the cities. So first of all, I'll give you a score for your map selection. 2, I'll give you a score for your city layout and roadway configuration. 3, I will give you a score for your land use planning. 4, I'll give you a score for your transit network. 5, I will give you a score for your city services. 6, your overall aesthetics of your city, and then I will give you an overall City Planner City Score. So as I mentioned, Alfadragon provided a bit of a backstory for this build, which I absolutely love. I've asked for that, and it's, some people give it to me, some people don't, but Alfadragon gave me an excellent backstory. So here goes. A frigid metropolis developed after large deposits of ore were discovered. Developed around the grid, the city tries to maximize the heat island effect to keep the place somewhat habitable. The county has a few city centers located at key points where resources were discovered. Parks are scarce given how cold it is, but the few staples that we have here are major attractions. We even managed a zoo and a prestigious engineering school here. You'd be lucky to see a day above freezing here, but that's part of the charm. Constant winter wonderland, whether you like it or not. One way the city offsets its costs is through an extensive toll network. Tolling was done here as an alternative to a high roadway tax and to allow for such high standards of roads. So I can't wait to dig into this and dive in and see what this looks like and give this builder a score. Okay, so the first thing we're going to review is the map. And this is Frozenshire, which is the map that came with the Snowfall DLC. And in my opinion, this is an absolutely wonderful map. Not only are all resources available, which if we take a look at this, you can see we have deposits of oil, ore, and even some fertile land where you could grow some crops, which they are doing. So they're really taking advantage of everything that's at their disposal. Things are available, and the map is absolutely wonderful. One of the things that I think is really unique about this map is that even though it's a map that came with the vanilla version of the game, it really is well designed to take advantage of the 81 tile mod, which you can tell that this builder has done. And I just really appreciate the way that they have taken every square inch of this map and done something with it. It's not surprising. This particular builder has been working on this map for 2 to 3 years, and wow, I'm really glad they shared it with us. So this builder seems to have taken the time to really maximize the use of this map and picked a map that will fulfill their vision. So as a result, I'm giving them a score of 5 out of 5 for their map selection. So next, let's take a look at roadway configuration and city layout. And this is an area where I'm really impressed with the map. So the way that they've designed on this map. So first of all, you can see that they are really going up and building in and up to the map edges where there are mountains, and it looks very natural and well laid out. I really like what they've done here. And they've really done a good job respecting roadway hierarchy. And we're going to dive into that in a minute. But one of the reasons that it's so impressive is there's no transit in this city. And we take a look at our traffic flow, we're at 80%. Wow. So that is really impressive to have a city with this amount of development, no transit, 80% traffic flow. And one of the things that's really impressive here is they have tolls all over the place. So to have this level of traffic flow in a city with this many tolls, very impressive. Now, one of the things that I will critique a bit is that we lack connectivity in certain areas. So if we take a look right here, for instance, if you are coming from this spot and trying to make your way over here, you got to funnel over this bridge right here, which is a local bridge, and I guess that's a local connection, but this is really likely going to function as something of a higher class. Let's take a look. You can see what this means. So we've got this bridge, and there's a lot of utilization on here. This is really functioning kind of as a collector. So this is maybe where roadway hierarchy is deviated from just a bit. And one of the critiques I have is that where we do have higher classification roads to make these connections, they're also interchanges. So that's a bit problematic in my opinion. So I'd like to see some more higher classification connections and maybe a few more of them. That said, the builder was very specific in their notes to me, stating that they did this on purpose. They wanted to really emulate a true city, and this is what happens sometimes. You have highways acting as significant barriers, and that is certainly a problem here. So as a car-dependent city, to maintain this level of traffic flow, they've really had to add a lot of detail. And look at some of the detail that they've added here. This roundabout is absolutely stunning. They've gone through, added their lane markings, and everything is crisp. Everything is beautiful. They've accommodated pedestrians through this roundabout. It's a long bridge, maybe longer than I would have liked. I would have potentially added that right here or something of that nature, maybe right here, to have a shorter crossing rather than to have this extensive network. There's no way in the world that two bridges would be built. It looks neat, but it's just not reasonable. So they have gone through and lighten this up so it's easier to see. Lane markings everywhere. And making Biffa happy, we have lane mathematics being adhered to, which is awesome, because that means that you have better traffic flow. Now, one of the things when I go into TMPE that you can notice, we'll turn on our lane connectors, and you'll see that they've had to use these in a couple of places. I'm not seeing it right now. I saw it earlier, but there are a couple places, where they've had to kind of cheese things to make it work. I've got to zoom in a little bit here. Let's see if I can find one of these places. Okay, so here's a good example. Through the tolls, they've got a lot of lane correction going on, which is totally fine, but it does lead to some issues in certain areas where you've got the AI, it doesn't really know what to do because of all of these connectors, and it's trying to transition before, and that can be kind of a trap. I don't know that there's many ways to fix this, short of getting people out of their cars, and this is just kind of one of those issues that you can see in the game. Interestingly, we have the ability to make a choice here, and I think it's creating some issues. Here's a spot where maybe lane mathematics should have been adhered to a little closer, and we could have added a lane here to make this line up, rather than having this switching occurring here, because you're giving people options, and there are options that are confusing them. So just something to think about there. In general, though, really a great job with the transportation network. There are a couple of things where, maybe you could have toned it down just a bit. I mean, there's a lot going on here, but really beautiful job. Look at this, just absolutely splendid, the way that they've gone through and given every area in here the attention it deserves. Just really splendid work. I could look at this roadway network all day. They've done so much. It's not just the roadway network. They've gone through and made targeted pedestrian connections to make sure that people can get out of their cars if they so desire in this frigid climate. -1 Fahrenheit. That is brutal. That is Wisconsin in January. Some of the other things I really like. Look at this. Just their use of some of these assets that have these walls here just really makes it look natural and appropriate, and I just love it. And they've really stuck to their guns with the use of tolls. Excellent work. So for roadway network and overall city configuration, I think that they've done an absolutely excellent job. There's a story here with their roadway network. The roadway network follows proper hierarchy. Even though there's not a lot of connections in some areas, I think that it makes sense with the story that they're trying to tell. And truthfully, in some of the areas, I think it makes perfect sense. You don't want to overdo it on bridges. I've seen cities where you just bridge. There's a lot of bridges here, but not an overwhelming number. It makes sense to me. And because of that, I'm going to give them a score of 4.5 out of 5 for roadway configuration and city layout. Next, we're going to take a look at the land use planning of the city. So one of the things that immediately jumped out to me is that there is a very good mix of uses. So looking right here, for instance, we see that we have low density residential, we have a commercial corridor. This corridor right here provides connectivity to another part of the city, great access to these uses, and we have a mix. We have commercial, offices, high density residential, low density here. There is a logical progression to it. There are very few kind of random skyscrapers, and when they are there, they make sense. There are little activity nodes. I'm really impressed with what they did here, and you can even explain some of the decisions that they made here. So right here, for instance, this is a very residential area. There are very few jobs in this area, but there is a commercial corridor here. One of the interesting things is because there aren't jobs here, you'll see that everyone is funneling down this one road to get to the highway. Totally logical. But they've made this a community. It's not just a big suburb that you have to drive everywhere for everything. There is a little bit of neighborhood charm here. And when you get into the denser parts of the city, what I really love here is that you see that single blocks. First of all, they put parking in, which is kind of neat. It makes it feel a little bit more reasonable, realistic. And I appreciate that. But what I like to see, and what they are showing here, is you have office, commercial, residential in close proximity to one another, and just that's an impressive mix. And it's not just this one area. I could pick any area because they've done this everywhere. So just wow. Excellent work here. They've even buffered some of these more noxious uses from the residential. Now, one of the things that I struggled with, and this is going to become a theme a little bit through here, and this could be me, this could be the builder, it could be the mod set that they have. We'll see that there are some polluting uses that are in close proximity to residential uses, and I can't tell how bad the ground pollution is because there's some sort of conflict here. So I don't want to dock them too much for that because it could be something that's lost in translation, between them sending the save to me or the mod set. But that said, there are still some issues that I see here. We have these uses that, we'll take a look, very high polluting use right here. And there's a residential use right here that's very close. And that pattern exists in a few different places. Right here, we've got some snow dumps and an incinerator and some residential uses right here. I would not want to live right here. There's a highway. There are industrial uses right here. There's an incinerator. So to me, this is not a very appropriate place for residential uses. It does happen though, and because the builder is trying to provide a realistic city layout, I get it. So my main concern is that there is something that is preventing this from having issues. And everyone's happy, it's almost completely leveled up, and that to me is not at all reasonable. So that's the one thing I'm going to dock points for in this. Beyond that, I think that they've done an excellent job. Really making sure that density is where it's appropriate. They have a high-rise band throughout most of the city, except for where they want to target their density. And they transition their use as well. You see that we have some mid-rise here, low-rise here. The interesting thing is that the coast is not the focal point of this build. The coast is where you have your industries. So as a result, it makes sense to not make this your high-value residential area with a bunch of skyscrapers poking out from there. The river is the focal point of this build. It's where all of the transportation corridors come together, and as a result, that's where you have your density. It tells a story, and it makes a ton of sense. So as a result, I'm going to give this builder 4 out of 5 for their land use planning. And that, again, is just the result of the polluting uses near the residential uses. So next, we are going to take a look at the transit planning for the city. And I mentioned that there are no transit services available here. So it's hard to give a score for this one, truthfully, because there's not even a passenger rail line that I could find. We have lots of rail, but it's, freight stations and things of that nature. The only transit, so to speak, that we have is a passenger airport, which for some reason for me is not working incredibly well. I'm not sure if it was working better for the builder. 21 passengers, not outstanding. That said, it is well designed, but to me, that's just kind of a part of the normal transportation network. So I am not going to give a score for transit, score of 0 out of 5. Okay, next up, we are going to take a look at city services. So that is everything from electricity availability and, the overall utilities to the schools, police departments, and all of that. So we'll start out with electricity, and you can see that they're greatly overproducing, which is not a problem. I think that's fine, particularly in a winter build where you have to worry about heating. So I think it makes perfect sense. And one of the things that you'll notice right off the bat is that things are spread out. And that is genius. I love that they've done this. And then you'll notice some other things that they've done that are really creative. Right here, for instance, they have an electrical relay station. They brought this asset into the build and to add some realism. And I love that. So the interesting thing about the electrical relay is it produces 5 megawatts of power. So they've used it in targeted areas so that they don't have to have lines all over the place. So really creative use of that asset. They've used the windmills as kind of a feature of the city, which I really love. So right here, for instance, they have these windmills, and it's not just, we need power. They've actually made it a feature of the city and an attractive thing that you can feel proud of. That said, it would create some noise pollution, so that's, I guess, something to be aware of. And I'm not sure how effective these would be. I guess very effective, but it would certainly create some noise pollution. But even at that, just to take something that's utilitarian and turn it into something that is, absolutely a feature of the city and the build is really impressive. So we also have a couple other things to look at because this is a winter build. So they have water and heat that they need to maintain. So we have these heat pipes all over the place. These are not underneath the road where they belong. So that is one thing that I take a bit of issue with. It's fine. I understand that at some points you might just want to cover everything and conserve your nodes, particularly when you have a population of almost 350,000 Cims. But to me, that breaks from the immersion just a bit. So that's something I will be taking about a half a point off for. So just something to be aware of there. If you want to really create an immersive city, put your water pipes underneath the road where they belong. But even at that, even with this particular service, everything is really spread out. So if they were going to play with natural disasters, there is very little chance that the city would break because they've made a massive water complex. And then when you take a look at this, we'll take a look at their heating. They are overproducing here as well. So their heating system is not going to take their power system offline at night, for instance. So we can take a look at that now. We'll make it night. Everything is just fine. They're not running into problems with their heat. They're not running into problems with their power. They've taken great care to make sure that the build is running effectively. So very impressed with their utilities, with the exception of the water pipes under the road where they belong. So utilities are a feature here. How cool is that? How cool is that? So let's take a look at the other city services. You see that they have ample health care throughout the entire city, and it's spread out well throughout the entire build. Very impressed by that. And, even though not every place is within green in this coverage area, there's still not many problems. There are some sick citizens, and that is because of the distance. So that would be something, if I were looking at ways to improve this build, this is probably one of the places that I would do it. Because there are pockets of areas where, having a hospital right here, and I don't know if the appropriateness of this based on the surrounding land uses, but I know that there is a demand for some sort of healthcare service in this area. Same over here, there's not a lot of clinics, but there are areas where the coverage could be better, and maybe it would help take care of some of these sick citizens. My sneaking suspicion is that the sick citizens are because of the pollution. So then we take a look at our death care. We've got a lot of deceased citizens too. Now these numbers are alarming when I take a look at it, but one of the reasons they're so alarming is the city is so huge. So when I see that there's 1,400 deceased people, I freak out. But this is the result of having a massive, massive, massive city. Now they do rely heavily on cemeteries. Now one of the problems with that is that, these fill up. So that's something that I would keep in mind. They're probably going through here and doing quite a bit of manual emptying to make this work. They do have, pretty significant crematorium capacity, but yeah, their cemetery capacity is absolutely through the roof. And as a result, they have them all over the place. So that would be a concern to me. We take a look at our healthcare, good coverage there. You see these peppered throughout the entire community. They've really focused on it, which is awesome. And elder care as well. They've placed an emphasis on that. So great job. Fire coverage, the hazard is a little bit high here. So that's something that, I could see that they might want to focus a bit more on. They do have coverage throughout the entire build for the most part, but there are areas where it's not great. And when we take a look at our land uses over here, thankfully it's not industrial or anything that's super flammable, but this would be an area of concern. The other thing is with the lack of connectivity in this area, local connectivity, it would take a while for the fire trucks to actually get here. So that would be a bit of a concern for me. And I'm not seeing any fire watchtowers in some of these areas that have a lot of trees. So to me, that's another concern. I'd probably want to go through and add these. That said, I'm not sure that the builder has natural disasters. So that might be one of the reasons that those are not present. Next, when we take a look at our police coverage, the crime rate is low. That is the mixture of two things. One, blanketing the entire map with police stations. There are a couple areas where maybe the coverage is lacking a bit, but they have a policy applied to the entire map that is really helpful here. And that is, they have the recreational use policy, which slightly reduced crime rate, hugely increased police budget, and then harsh prison sentences. So, people aren't going to commit crimes here. So that is something that they've really focused on. They have plenty of capacity, lots of detained criminals, and a low crime rate for a city of this size. There are a couple areas where there are issues, but that's going to be in the densest of areas, and even there, it's not that bad. It's just a couple of buildings with issues. So in general, impressive job there. One of the places where there are issues is with trash collection. So the garbage capacity in this city, the processing status is on the border right now. So I guess I have a bit of a concern with that. What we see here is that this is one of the few city services that's not quite as well spread out. It's really, there's a big concentration of facilities here, one up here, a couple of them over here, but there are areas that there's just swaths of property that are all dependent upon these larger services. So as a result of that, what we're going to see, and this right here is actually a snow dump now that I look at it, so I believe, nope, that's a landfill. So what that ultimately means is that you're going to have these facilities going all over the map to actually be able to serve the entire community. And you see it right there. This one landfill, they're driving all over the place. And that is just, an issue with the number of waste management sites throughout the city. So a couple of issues here that I see. One of the things that I've struggled to find a place to discuss, though, is the city budget. And I think that this is probably as good a place as any to discuss it. You'll notice that I have unlimited money on, and that's because the bank balance is really an issue. So when I open up the economy menu, you'll notice that for a city of this size, it's not really generating any taxes. And I tried to fix this. I'm not sure if it's the mod list, if it's something wrong with the build, something is off. And as a result, it's not collecting enough tax revenues from the citizens here, even though everything's cranked up to 12. So as a result, it's bleeding money. And there are certain areas where it's bleeding money that, are not very very helpful. So one of them, you know, we're seeing this huge amount of money being spent on the rail network. It's helpful, and that's keeping traffic off the road. I would say that the amount of money spent on the airports relative to the amount of utilization is probably not great, but you know, it kind of is what it is with the story of this build. They are making money from their campuses. They're making money from their industries. It's just that these zoned properties, for some reason, are not working. Even their roadway budget, they're making quite a bit from their tolls. So it's really unfortunate that I can't see this work appropriately, because I'm guessing that if the tax revenues were right, this would be working. So that's the one place where I will dock a point as well. So for city services, I am giving a score of 3.5 out of 5. And that mainly is because of the money. And then again, some of the issues with the city services that were relatively minor, all things considered. So next, we're going to take a look at the unique features of the build. And the creator mentioned that there are not a lot of parks in this particular city, but I think that they're wrong. And if we take a quick look, you're going to probably agree with me. So let's turn everything on and we'll take a look. So right here, we've got a massive park. We've got another park right here. We've got a nature reserve right here. We've got a trade school over there. It's not a park, but we've got a national park right here. A nature reserve right here. Like, yeah, they've done a pretty good job. And even when we take a look at all these little parks all over the place, excellent job having coverage with that and having some unique parks. We also have these industry areas. So we have an ore extraction site. When we take a look at it, it's really well laid out. We don't see a lot of traffic around here. And one of the things I really love is this oil industry that they created over here. A little bit of a concern that it's a cul-de-sac. So when we take a look, there's one way in, one way out. Pretty impressive, though, that this thing is not breaking down with only one way in and out. A little sad that they have to drive through this residential neighborhood to get to this industry area. But I think one of the reasons this functions so well is they've really relied on rail to make this industry area work. So good job there. They've also created a trade school campus over here that is kind of tucked away, well designed and well utilized. So the coverage for education, I didn't really go over this in the previous section, but it's pretty good. The only place it's not completely covered, I guess, is university. It's kind of borderline right there. That totally fits the character of the build. This is kind of a blue collar town, and they've made a beautiful little trade school campus here. Let's play with the light a bit. Let's admire this just a little bit. Some lights on. Nice little campus. Parking here. Well, it's a compact campus on the edge of town. Wow, what a nice little campus. I mentioned previously that they have taken some of their utilities, turned it into a park, and made it an amenity. How cool is that? What a great idea. So this is not a park that, you know, has a gate or anything, but they've made it into an area where people could come and check it out to make it a feature of the area. And where they have included parks, even when they're small, they work really well. So this park right here, not huge, but a decent size, and it fits in the area really well. Now, I don't know if we'd see rhinos in a place this cold. My guess is we wouldn't, but the game allows it, and they're taking advantage. Same with lions. Again, maybe not something that they would love, but that's fine. One of the things that I absolutely love that they've done about this, that they've done with this build, we take a look at our unique buildings here. They don't have a lot of them. And to me, that makes perfect sense. So looking at our unique buildings right here, we have an aviation club. We have a frozen mountain here, or frozen fountain here. Very cool. Over here, I believe this is a winter market, which makes total sense in this build. And then downtown, really, we don't have all that many, which I think is fine. One of the things that I do critique in some builds is kind of the over-reliance on unique buildings. So when we take a look at these right here, we have the transit tower, the aquarium, the science center, an academic library, And really that's kind of about it. So not a lot over here at Ice Hockey Arena, and to me, that's fine. The result of this is that when we look at our land values, they're not overinflated anywhere. Let's get all this stuff off. We see that land values are highest downtown. They taper off over here. That means that we have some affordable housing in different parts of the city. So there are stories being told here by the unique building placement. And I really, really appreciate that. I think that they've done a great job. The assets are appropriate. They make sense in terms of the scale. So we don't have random big buildings popping up throughout the area. The trade school is great. Everything is unique and well integrated. And as a result, for unique features, I'm going to give them a score of 4.5 out of 5. Okay, and our final category is aesthetics. And I've already mentioned it. This builder has spent a lot of time making sure that their build is incredibly detailed. And this really extends to all aspects of the build. They've done a lot of work here. So they've done things like add this key wall here to make this topography work for them. I really like that. I think that's really, really great. They've done a lot of other things that I think are really creative as well. So I mentioned, and I'll keep coming back to it, I love that they made the utilities a feature here. The topography is mostly respected. There are some places where maybe they ignored it. I want to show you the effect of this. So to me, this reminds me of San Francisco, where this city was built on a grid. Someone didn't really care about the terrain. They said, we're building this grid here because that is what we're doing. And truthfully, it doesn't look that bad. I think it looks really good, truthfully. So they're building on this hill. It's very steep. I wouldn't want to drive on this in the winter. Imagine going down this hill and it's a little bit slick. You're going to slide down and kabam, right into this building. But I guess there's a tree blocking you, so, that's a thing. But in general, they've done a good job respecting the terrain. Now, in the very beginning, I brought up this view where we can see that they've built up to the mountains and not any further. And I love that. They kind of have this road ringing this to prevent themselves from overdoing it and building into the hills too much. And I think that is wonderful. One of the places I was particularly impressed. So they have key walls along most of the waterways, except for here along the river, they stopped. And now I think there's a real tendency for some builders, myself included, to encroach upon the waterway and make some pretty unsafe building decisions. They haven't done that at all here. And I want to show you the level of restraint. So if we turn on our grid here, you can see right here, there's a parking lot. They didn't pull it too far down. They stopped. Or they terraformed, one of the two, but it makes perfect sense. They could have zoned right here and had a real sharp cliff. They decided not to. That is wonderful. So I really, really appreciate what they've done here with respecting the terrain in this particular way. I think that they've done a good job there. Generally, there are just a couple of areas where, again, the terrain, they've kind of just gridded over it, but that is fairly common. So I think that this is an absolutely stunningly beautiful build. They've brought in some unique assets. They've just done a good job. They've done a really good job with the overall aesthetic. Even things like this. This is an oil refinery, an oil industry. And I believe if we take a look, it is a 5-star industry. So it is productive. And yet it's still absolutely beautiful. This wouldn't be something that I would look at coming into the city and go, ugh. It's still not bad to look at, which is really, really impressive. So for overall aesthetics, I'm going to give this builder a score of 4.5 out of 5. And, some of this, again, goes back to the Roadway Network. Done a great job with it. Just overall, great job. So that leaves us with one thing left to do. We need to give them a City Planner City score, and we tally all of the things together, and we get a score of 26 out of 35. It is absolutely masterful. I've got to say it. This kind of build, I'm going to turn this off so we can admire it. Let's take it to night as well. This build just wow. You can tell that they've put 2 to 3 years into this. This, I think it was Planner Pete in the Discord server that once told me that his wife refers to his city as his bonsai tree. And this is clearly this person's bonsai tree. It is their labor of love, their passion. It is what they do to unwind on a day. They put a great deal of thought and effort into this build, and it really shows. Every square inch of this map has detail and thought. One of the things I don't think I've really highlighted much are the districting. So there are districts literally everywhere. They've really just gone above and beyond. I really love this build. They've done a great job, and I really appreciate that they've taken the time to show us their build because it's really outstanding. So I want to give one more round of applause, everyone, to Alfadragon for showing us this build. If you want to take a look at this, there's going to be a link to the map down in the description. They're obviously an expert builder. They've spent a lot of time with the game and mastered it. The only thing I'd really love to see here would be some transit. I would expect that in a city like this, we would see bus service at a minimum. I mean, this is way too many people to not have any transit service at all. You don't need subways, you don't need rail, you don't need trams, you don't need, metro, nothing. You could just have bus service, and that would be reasonable to me. That's the one major critique of this build that I would love to see. So if the builder decides to add that, I would be really happy to take a look at this again. But excellent job. Again, if you want to submit your city, there is a link in the description to the submittal form, and I do have a number of them, but when things jump out to me, like this city did, you could get picked. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this. Let's give them a brief city tour. Take care. Bye-bye.